Hello and welcome to the Dublin Arsenal podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Giles, as always. On the show this week, I'm joined by regular gooner, Eamonn Donnelly, and by Irish Seagulls Brighton fan, Pete Baker, to review Saturday evening's 1-1 draw away at the Amex. And remember to check out our show on the Dublin Arsenal YouTube channel and also on Spotify. As I said in my intro, I'm joined by Pete Baker from the Irish Seagulls Brighton fan club. Great to have you back on after the preview there last week. Pete, how are you?
All good. Good to be back on so soon.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on. Who knows, you might even get in the cup, as you said to me during the weekend. You might have another stint on the show, but no, really good views for our preview show with yourself there and Eamonn from Friday evening there when it was put out. So that was good news for us. I'm also joined by Arsenal season ticket holder, lifelong gooner, Eamonn. Who are you this week, Donnelly? How are you, pal?
Evening, Jonathan. Evening, Pete. I was in court today. I tried to sue the airport for misplacing my luggage, but I lost my case. I went to a restaurant afterwards called Karma. There's no menu. You just get what's coming to you. No, we're all good. We're all good. Good to see you, Pete. I like the fact that we can come on after previewing the game and then just pick the bones out of it so soon. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's something that I'd just like to tell our listeners and viewers something that we'll try out for a few weeks to have our away fan on. You know, since we have them on the preview show, we see how our viewing ratings go up with having you on for the review show. So something different, you know, anything that gets us more views is welcome.
So long as it's not that geezer from Newcastle you dragged out there. The season before that.
Alan Williams, I don't think we'll ever see that lad's face on again after the roast he got. We thank VAR for losing an away fan to that. It was Pigmont again taking us away. Yeah, as always, catch our show on the Dublin Arsenal YouTube channel and also on Spotify. And this goes out thanks to Martin Stumble, who does a great job at the Dublin Arsenal Supporters Club, I have to say, and along with Eamonn and the Dublin Arsenal Committee. We shoot straight into our review, as always, 1-1 at the weekend. Brighton 1, Arsenal 1. The goal for ourselves came from Eaton and Weirdy. Not even 18 yet, and the second goal there for us. Thought he took his goal really well, and the goal for Brighton came from Joe Pedro from the penalty spot at around the hour mark. 2 goals in a season for Joe Pedro against the Arsenal, and that's 2 points for Brighton now, taking home and away this season from the Gunners. In terms of the action, the notes that I have, lads, straight into the first goal, and then Weirdy, he was a great assist, great little dink ball over the top by Declan Rice, over the top, setting and Weirdy away, and he came in from the wing and he took a shot really well. Thought the Brighton keeper for Brogan could have done a bit better, you know, just went underneath him, you know, but those type of, I thought the Brighton defender Van Hecken could have went into closer to Eden and Weirdy, but he had, I think it was Jesus over his shoulder, so he was caught in 2 minds. I think he thought Verbruggen would have done enough. But just before that goal, just briefly, Jesus had a great chance, but he was ruled offside. Verbruggen saved with his feet. It was fairly early on in the first half. I thought Jesus looked sharp there Saturday, but nothing really came of it after that. I suppose Rice's corner was headed over by Marino in the first half. He collided with Gabriel and Jesus in the process. Unlucky not to get at least on target, you know, but very encouraging from Marino. Eamonn has said this in previous shows. His height is a real threat from set pieces, from corners and free kicks, and Declan Rice's deliveries are just getting, you know, so pinpoint. It's just really ridiculous, you know, how consistent he is to get, you know, right on the head of the player. Into the second half, then obviously the penalty incident that really blew up Twitter and our own thread. We went into complete meltdown. It was on around the hour mark when Joe Pedro chipped the ball up inside the box, and Saliba went to go for the header and clashed heads with Joe Pedro. Now, I thought Arteta says he never saw this before, this decision in all his career. And I just want to briefly mention the incident that happened in the early game, which was Spurs against Newcastle, when Kulusevski shouldered Anthony Gordon, who got a broken nose out. That looked more of a penalty than this one given by Anthony Taylor. I know we're going to get into this with yourself, the two of you, but I just thought he got a bit of the ball, Saliba. He wasn't intentionally going to put him in the side of the face, but it's his position I never seen as well. And it'd be great to hear your opinions, but I don't think it was a penalty in my opinion. But I know Sidwell and Redknapp on Sky Sports said it was a penalty. So when Sky says it must be a penalty, but I don't think it'd be interested to hear your points now in a second, lads. I suppose in terms of, I thought Joe Pedro, he took his penalty really well, straight into the left hand side of Ray. And he was very confident penalty. He gave him the eyes and took it away well, in fairness to Pedro. Minter put a ball across the box. And Matoma at the back post was unlucky not to get it. I thought the substitutions Horsner made in the second half, they did change the game, opened us up a bit more pace-wise, and Horsner's done that a few times this season. He can change a game at the right time, when he sees teams getting tired. He can bring on pace down the wings, and it can cause havoc. And you have your own injury worries, as we discussed in the previous show, but there's good depth in that squad, in Brighton. And then near the end, Rice had a free kick that was met by Partey, who headed over. And then Trossard had a chance, but it blazed over as well. And I knew the Brighton fans gave him a big applause for that. When you go back to your old ground, I knew he was going to get that. And his expression said it all. But 1-0 at the Amex, a game with very few chances. But I thought, in my opinion, we were pretty poor now on Saturday now. And the loss of Bukayo Saka, is going to be emphasised a lot over the next few weeks. If we don't get the results going our way, he is a huge loss to unlocking the door, for a chance. But I thought, as Eamonn says before we came on, I thought well deserved for Brighton to get a draw out this game, and Pete predicted correct, so that's why he's on. He wanted a draw in the previous and it happened. I don't want to come to you first, Pete, and it's great to have you back on so soon. What was your analysis from the game on Saturday, Pete?
Yeah, it was an even game. I think 1-1 was about right. I don't think anyone really deserved to walk away with all 3 points. I think if anyone had done, I think it would have been harsh on the other team. I think a big improvement from Brighton, I think, in their all-around game. From previous games, I think we defended well. I think we broke Arsenal's play up enough to kind of just keep you out of the way and just keep everything the way we wanted it. And I think we defended well. It was entertaining. I think, there's the one controversial decision, which is the penalty. When I seen that, when I saw it, and during the game, I was like, it's all day a penalty. Especially with the Wolves game, when João Pedro went for a 50-50 ball and got your man, and they gave a penalty. So I was like, well, look, that's a penalty. So is this one. I suppose the next day, once all the replays started coming in and everyone was really slowing it down and saying, look at this. My personal view is, he touches the ball. Is it enough? No. I think if it was with the feet, they would have said there's not enough of the ball. He's not done enough to move the ball. It's touched him. He's not touched the ball. The other argument of the accident, clash of heads, I get it, but then I'm also like, you don't give accidental clash of feet. Now, in fairness, the earlier game that you mentioned, the Newcastle Tottenham game, that was a penalty all day. Yeah. And I was watching Ian Wright on ESPN. He said it. He said they didn't give the Newcastle a penalty. they shouldn't have given Brighton a penalty. And he is right in that. If you're not going to give one, you shouldn't give the other. But both, in my eyes, were both penalties. And I think this goes back to what I've said in the preview show, and it's in the previous preview show before then. The inconsistency in refereeing is what's killing it.
Yeah.
And I believe that if it had been reverse way round, so if it was a Brighton defender done to Arsenal, every Arsenal fan would be saying it's a penalty. I think it's one of those, when it's against you, you're harsh done by. When it's for you, you're like, it's a penalty. I think it's one of those. I think if it's the other way around, everyone would be saying it's a penalty every day.
Sorry, Pete, for cutting across. Do you think Anthony Taylor should he have gone to the screen to have a look at it himself again, or do you think he called us to, should VAR have got involved in that one?
See, I haven't heard what VAR have said on it.
Yeah, I haven't heard it myself. Yeah.
If you were looking at it from VAR's point of view, and you looked through the first 5 replays, which we did on Sky, and there was nothing there that said to me Saliba got the ball, or it. And most people would have to agree. When you first look at it, you go, it looks like he's just gone straight into the side of his head. And it's only when you slow it down, you go, okay, VAR probably should have spent a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But Taylor can't decide, I'll give the penalty. Actually, I want to go back and look at this. He's not allowed to do it.
It's split seconds to see. Yeah.
And I think this is where I've said is wrong with VAR. I think the referee should be allowed, if he's not sure, he should be able to turn around and say, look, I want to have a look at that again.
Yeah.
He's like, look, it looks like a penalty. That's my initial decision. But I just want to make sure on one thing. And then if he'd gone back, looked at the replay and said, actually, do you know what? I'm sticking by my decision. This is why. As they do in rugby, as they do in other sports, where he gives his reason why.
Yeah.
And if he turns around and says, look, Saliba's late, doesn't get enough of the ball, gets too much of your man, most people probably say, okay, you've given a reason, but you're still left in silence at the moment as to why he gave it, why VAR never really intervened. And that's where everyone's frustrations come from.
Yeah. You think as well, Pete, do you think it was the reaction, that instant reaction of Joe Pedro going down, clutching his face? Do you think that was another factor of Taylor? Because when he chipped the ball up, it was a bit clever what Pedro done. I think he knew he was expecting someone to come in as well, wasn't he, when he chipped it up?
Yeah, I don't like. We all know there's play acting involved in it. Now, I'm not saying getting hit in the side of the head with someone else's head's not going to hurt, but yeah, he does go. He goes down. He makes the most of it as he can.
Yeah. People
can criticize João Pedro all they want on it, but any other player in that position would do the exact same thing. And you see it, game in,
game out.
Doesn't matter what side, doesn't matter what player. They're all making the most of those tackles. You look at some of them, the way they're clutching their legs or they're rolling around, and you're sitting there going, wasn't that bad? And look, I don't like it, but I don't think João Pedro's done more than what 90% of other players would have done.
Yeah. In
that position, knowing he's in the box, he has been hit. It's not like he wasn't hit and went down and was like,
yeah,
I'll pretend. He got that. He got hit, and he got hit fairly. It wasn't like a little brush off the side of the head, or and he went down to make the most, and he got the penalty. I still think even if he hadn't rolled around on the floor, in my eyes, it's still a penalty.
Yeah,
a harsh one, but I think it is. I think it's one of those. If it's not given, you'd have it 50% saying why was it never given, as it is now. You've got one camp saying why was it given, you've got the other camp saying it should be. I think if it had been reversed and not given, you'd still have the same thing of people saying, well, he was late, didn't get enough of the ball.
Yeah.
The accidental clash of heads, I think that only applies, if the two players literally push their heads into each other, which wasn't the case. I think Pedro had already gone through the ball, and then Saliba's come in afterwards.
Yeah. In terms of and where these go for ourselves, Pete, do you think that was a really good finish from the young lad, or do you think your goalkeeper, Verbruggen, and defender Van Hecke could have done more in that sense?
Yeah, I think Verbruggen could have done more.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, it is a good finish. It's close to his body. He's already coming across. He's already half coming. He's coming down, thinking the ball's going to come into his near post rather than come back across.
Yeah.
And then I think by the time he's realised how close it is to him, I just don't think he can't do enough with his legs or his right half to do anything about it. It's a good finish. It was a good piece of play. I've got no real qualms even with even Van Hecke. I think it's just one of those caught us by surprise. Nice quick move, good passing. It was a decent shot. No complaints on that.
Yeah, there was also a late chance for yourselves in the second half. Minch's ball across the box that Mitoma at the back post just about missed. Were you pleased with Horsler's substitutions? They did change the game at the right time. I think. Do you agree with that, Pete?
Yeah. Substitutions are really good, and they have been of late. And it's not just when he does the substitution; it's the tactics change as well. I think when we were under De Zerbi, there'd be substitutions, but it's the same tactics.
Yeah.
And I think he brought on, with Mitoma. I said in the preview, they love putting those diagonal balls into him and try and catch the right back off guard, and they were doing that. But then playing slightly differently with Minte, they're coming in down on the ground and trying to play through the middle and then bring him in. I think substitutions and the tactics worked well. João Pedro, he's not an out-and-out striker. He's not Danny Welbeck. He's not an Evan Ferguson. And I think that's what we missed. I think if Danny Welbeck had been there when Minte put the ball across the goal, you see João Pedro's too late, but I think Danny Welbeck would have been smart enough. He would have pushed himself a little bit higher forward, and stretched out for it. So it was. I'm happy with the effort from Brighton. I'm happy with the way they pushed themselves. Substitutions. I don't think Arsenal were that bad. I think Brighton have improved so much and have worked ways to keep teams like City and Arsenal and the bigger sides, to keep them at bay. And we don't want to sit there and soak up 90 minutes of pressure.
Yeah.
We want to be like, okay, we're going to attack. We got the equalizer, and we were like, okay, we've had you on the back foot for so long. We're going to keep pushing for that winner. And I think we pushed for a certain length of time, but then we got smart enough that we got caught out on the counter a couple of times. He changed the tactics again. Actually, we're not going to go as high up. Keep it down. We'll try to do the counter ourselves.
Yeah.
So there's that nice change. He can read the game and he can see, hold on, if we don't sit back a little bit, we are going to get hit on the counter. You've far more pacier forwards than we've got defenders, and I think that's always my worry. That we were going to get caught out on the break. So.
Yeah. I know for ourselves, one big player that was really missing and was due to suspension, sadly, was Jurrien Timber. I thought with Party, Party not in midfield I thought was a loss. And we were saying that on the preview show. But I don't want to come to our regular gooner now, Eamonn Donnelly. I'd like to start off, Eamonn, with the big talking point in the match, the penalty. Can I get your view, first of all, of that incident?
Okay, but I mean, I don't want it to sound like a persecution complex, because I thought Brighton were well worth their draw.
Yeah, these days.
And I don't think we played well. So if I start off on the penalty, it's going to sound as if I'm, throwing my toys out of the pram. I'd rather analyse the game first. But
throw your analysis first, Eamonn, and we can go.
It's very good. The analysis of the game is quick enough. I think the first half was okay from ourselves. I think we probably shaded it, but only shaded it. And when I say shaded, because we got the goal. The dink actually was by Marino. It wasn't by Rice.
Was it Marino?
Yeah, Marino. And I actually think he meant it for Rice. And young Monieri decided to take charge of the situation, which was very impressive, and decided to go at the goals. And he's a very good finisher. And I wouldn't put too. I don't think people. I think the goalkeeper is expecting to pull her across the box because there was a free player available, and he went for it. And when you hit it early like that, it's very hard for a big goalkeeper to get down and adjust. I think it was a great piece of play by Monieri. Now, I was actually disappointed with Monieri. I thought he'd the beaten of the fullback all day long, but he didn't mix up what he was trying to do enough. He tried to jink in onto that left foot every time. That was getting red. I think Monieri has the body shape and the smarts to go inside or outside, and I thought he should have varied it a bit, and it got a bit predictable. The time he got the goal, he broke into space, and he had a lot of space to do that. But when you're in a tighter situation, I thought he could have done a bit more. No, he's a 17-year-old kid. I am not in any way critical. I'm just saying that he has more in his locker in terms of getting himself into more dangerous positions than he showed on Saturday, right? And also the gap between him and
missed him in the second half as well, Eamonn. Dan Weirdy. I know he came off with a bit of a niggle at half time. Do you think we missed him in the second half though?
I'd have taken him off anyway.
Right.
I think the gap between him and Partey was too big. Partey's not a fullback. We were getting exposed, and before we knew that Monieri was injured, we thought that he brought Martinelli on to give Partey more protection, and also because ridiculously once again he was booked for time wasting from a corner, when obviously what's happening in his picture as he's taking the corner is all of that American football is going on in the box, and he's waiting for that to settle down, and then the referee books. No other player of any other club gets booked for delaying a corner, right? I'll get onto the proper persecution complex in a minute, but stay with me. I'm on the game now. In the second half, I thought what happened was quite simple. Is that Brighton started beginning to boss the central midfield. It was an area of concern I had when we did the preview show, and I was crying out. Declan's not playing well. Declan is not playing well, but he's been playing with a niggle in fairness to him. Plus, he's had no rest, and I was screaming for. Look, Mikel Arteta, I love him to bits. He knows way more about football than I do. But in my limited knowledge, what I would have done is said, Declan, just go and do a functional job on the right-hand side at right full back. You have it in your locker to do that. And then got Thomas Partey into the middle of the pitch where we were being bossed around. Thomas Partey has been our best midfielder all season, and we needed him in there. And
I thought he was a big loss in the middle. Yeah,
he was a massive loss.
Yeah.
I think Brighton were well worth their draw, although the big incident, the penalty, they may not have got that draw without the penalty. They may have, they may not. We don't know. But they were Brighton are very impressive. They probably draw too many games because they don't have massive firepower. They just don't. But they're very, very combative around the middle of the pitch. They're a very honest team, and we didn't play well. But look, Odegaard came on, and he was sick. Why are you going to bring it? Why bring a player on who's ill? He was never going to change that type of game. If that had been a weaker team at home and we were dominating and we needed somebody to unlock the door, yes. I thought he would have been better off doing something like bringing Zinchenko on or Miles Lewis-Skelly into that position. Somebody who's healthy. Not somebody, who has the bubonic plague, as Arsenal players always seem to get. But, so overall, no complaints with the result in terms of what both teams gave. I think it was fair enough. We weren't shocking. We just weren't good. Brighton were good. And I think they deserved to get something out of the game. That being said, goals change games, and the penalty changed the game. So I'll get on to the penalty now, if you don't mind, right? So all I'll say to you is, having played about 2,000 competitive games myself, if a referee gave that against me, I'd headbutt the referee. I would, because that is not a penalty. If Saliba hadn't touched the ball, let's deal with it. Let's strip it down. If Saliba hadn't touched the ball, it's still not a penalty. Now, I'm going to qualify this by saying I was with John Melia and Eric Shadowlands, both of whom are really, really sharp analysts of the game, and they both thought it was a penalty, right? So I'm going to try and be balanced here. And we had a bit of a lively discussion about it. Now I was furious. And I'm saying, that's not a penalty. If you've ever played the game, you try and head the ball. Now, I'm going to deal with Pete's point, 2 points that Pete made. One is he didn't get enough of the ball. There's no rule that says you have to get X% of the ball. If you get the ball, you get the ball. And the second one is if you do that with your feet. But the head is always different. Like football is a game played generally on the deck. You get leg breakers from your feet. The head is different. You know, and I'm telling, the reason why I'm convinced it was never a penalty, right, is this. Those type of clashes happen all over the pitch. And I've seen them for years and years and years. And when they happen, the referee normally stops the game and sees that the two lads are all right and rolls the ball in. All over the pitch, right? If Saliba had gone down holding his head, he wouldn't have given the penalty. That's a clash of heads, right? So that's only if Saliba hadn't touched the ball. Now we'll deal with the fact that he did touch the ball, and this is what really infuriates me. Because you say Sky Sports, Sidwell and Nappy Rash gave a view.
To be honest, I'm sorry for cutting across. I'm not surprised Jamie Redknapp agreed that it should be. But for Sidwell, you know, an ex-guy, you know.
No, it's nothing to do with that. They're analysts and they call it as they say. I don't buy this. Well, he used to play for that buddy. You know? Like they're analysts and they call it. But the problem is,
like, sorry, Eamonn, but wait,
to make me point. Wait to make me point. They're analysts and they work for Sky Sports.
It's for the drama of it all for them. Yeah,
it's the drama. Sky Sports, remember, has its own show dedicated to Howard Webb and Pigmall.
But right? Mike Owen,
they also have Mike Dean in the studio saying, penalty for me, mate. Oh yeah, in a game like this, penalty for me, mate. Yeah, like it's a circus. And every single week we are talking about VAR. Every single week. Now, so even if you say my argument, Saliba got the ball, and in Match of the Day can turn a camera angle to show that he got the ball. Well, what in the name of Jesus were VAR doing? VAR cleared that in 22 seconds. 22 seconds for something that has us debating the thing high and low. VAR cleared that in 22 seconds. And yet they'd spend 3-4 minutes on an offside call. So there's something poison about officiating in England. It's absolutely poison. And I'll deal with the implications about that a small bit later on. But if VAR, and the great point that Pete made, and I just noted as you were saying it, Pete, was what they do in other sports, right? American football being one, right? Rugby union, the referee, he sees a try, and he says to the guy upstairs, I'm thinking try here, but I want you to check for a possible forward pass or on the TMO that we can't see that, Jonathan. We can only see a backward pass. I think you're okay to award the try. Am I good to award the try? I'm good to award the try. Everybody gets it. It's clear. But how can you clear something in 22 seconds that A, we'd spend an hour debating, and B, that Match of the Day can turn out a camera angle at the drop of a hat that shows that Saliba touched the ball. Even if you think he still touched the ball, it's still a penalty because he didn't get enough of the ball. I don't buy that because there's no rule that says you have to get X% of the ball. So I thought it was a disgraceful decision. And if you're going to go to the letter of the law and you want to do all that, well, then the arm around Gabriel's shoulder in the box when he was hauled to the ground is also a penalty. Like if you're going to say somebody trying to, like Gabriel was hauled down when as the corner kick was about to be taken, that is a foul in the box, therefore a penalty, right? But the game doesn't work like that. So I decided to try and lay bare my fury and actually just sit back and listened to what the professionals were saying. And most of the pros in the game are saying, the game I played in, that's a clash of heads. It's not a penalty.
Yeah.
That's my view of it.
What would your take, like as I mentioned in the Kulisevsky Gordon incident in the earlier game in the day? Do you agree that was more of a penalty than the one that Brighton were given?
Couldn't care less.
But you know what it means.
From Gordon to be out for the game on during the week. That was a penalty.
What do you think, Eamonn?
That was a penalty, but then again, Newcastle's goal, and I'm not on a love him with Spurs. Newcastle's goal shouldn't have been allowed because it was a bloody handball that influenced the outcome. You know, the game. Like, it's only in England that this happens. Because,
as you said, every penalty incident nearly goes on for the guts of a minute or two, if not more. I didn't know. I didn't actually realise, Eamonn, until you said that. That it's 22 seconds. That's like not even to refer to the screen.
That's such a contentious issue. 22 seconds, right? But what I'm saying here is that in every other league in Europe, right? In every other league in Europe, the referees are not centre stage. But the Premier League and its big money flow situation, it's showbiz, it's razzmatazz, and they've made officiating showbiz. And we're suffering as a result. But look, that being said, I don't want to take away from Brighton. I thought they were every bit our match at the weekend, and they played really well. We didn't play well in the second half. Brighton bossed the middle of the pitch. We didn't make the necessary adjustments, and they were well worth their draw.
Yeah. What was your take as well, Eamonn? I wanted to say to you before you got to the penalty incident. What was your take on Jorginho's performance on Saturday?
Well, you see, when you're being bossed around in the middle of the pitch, it's the one area that if you're being bossed around there, the team starts giving the ball away more.
Yeah.
And our biggest problem in the second half was we kept giving the ball away. But if you're being bossed around in the middle of the pitch, the angles that you have available to you, the hip players, the little combinations that you have, they look as if they're not on. So you try something a bit different, maybe, or try to get around the corner that's not going to work, and you give the ball away. I didn't think Jorginho I don't think any Arsenal player played particularly well. I don't think he was anyone. Okay, he got caught in possession a couple of times, but that's because we lost the momentum and we were being bossed in the middle of the pitch. I think we needed Thomas Partey in the middle of the pitch because he's the one player who generally comes out of duels with possession and has time on the ball to do what we need to do. But we're very good in the middle of the pitch.
Yeah, when you see the way he dominated the midfield, pretty much away at Brentford on New Year's Day, that was always going to be the worry when Timber got that picked up that yellow that night. Yeah.
Well, the other thing, and the last thing I'll say about the officiating, they allow violent conduct. I mean, what's your lad's name? Estupiñán's shoulder charge that got us a free kick. I mean, it wasn't particularly violent, but it was a yellow card. But he's booking some 17-year-old kid taking a corner, right? And then,
the inconsistencies.
Yeah.
I
mean, this is not having a go at your fullback. I'm just saying, the officiating is just.
The officiating is gone. Like, there was a incident late on in the second half. Carafioli barged out Ruta. It was a clear foul. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
and turned around, screamed at the referee, got booked for that. Now, I was kind of like, I think last season Lewis Dunk did something similar. Was a foul, got booked for that, turned around, screamed at the referee, got another yellow. So 2 yellows within a second, gone. And you are right, the officiating's gone. There's no consistency. There's no. I will accept if they say clash of heads will never be a penalty, ever. Doesn't matter the context or whatever. It will never be a penalty. That's fair enough. And you stick with that rule, and that's the same for everybody. Happens every game. Handball is the handball rule, they say. Lewis Dunk last season gave away a penalty for trying to keep himself up off the ground. The ball hit him. Wasn't going towards goal. Didn't stop a goal. It was going across the penalty box. Gave a penalty. VAR reviewed it. No clear enough.
You raised a great point, because this is something I wanted to come to. Now, this will only take a minute. We've come out the wrong side of 4 critical decisions this season. Decision number 1, the Declan Rice yellow card. Right? And we discussed this on the preview show. Yeah, I had to watch Erasmus Hoyland yesterday kick the ball away in front of the referee and no yellow card. So what you're saying is that if that's the law, tell us all it's the law, and then we all know what the law is and we can all accept it.
It has to be consistent. But
Chris Kavanagh said that Declan Rice gave him no choice. Well, Michael Oliver had a choice yesterday, and he decided not to book Hoyland for kicking the ball away in front of him. This is the same Michael Oliver who contributed to decision 2, which was when Leandro Trossard kicked the ball away while he was still in mid-motion, by the way, a second after the whistle blew. Michael Oliver gave him a second yellow, and sent him off in a game against Man City. The third decision was Saliba was sent off against Bournemouth, and this is the only one I'm 50-50 on, because I thought he was in trouble, and I was delighted that they didn't send him off, and then VAR called for a review, and they changed their mind and sent him off. And then the fourth decision was yesterday. Now, here's the point I want to make, right? That's 4 key decisions, which is about somewhere between 7 and 11 points it cost us, right? And they say, here's what these twits on Sky say. Oh, over the course of the season, how many times have you heard it? These things even themselves out. Well, if they even themselves out, wouldn't you think we'd have got 2 out of those 4 decisions on the law of averages? We got none. And we have not had one decision this year that was contentious in our favour, right? And I'm just saying there's a northwest of England enclave of referees, right? And you'd say, well, Brighton is in the south coast. It's not that. Like, Liverpool and Manchester are 2 cities that have dominated football. All the referees are from that enclave, and then you have this circus refereeing, and I don't like it. Some of them headed off to Saudi to get a few grand for refereeing games. I don't like it, and it's poison as far as I'm concerned. That's my rant over now. But I raised that point because you made a very good point, Pete, about if it's the law, it's the law. Well, if it's the law, Hoyland should have been booked yesterday.
Yeah, we can count all the times where we've seen an incident and said he got booked for that. I mean, I'm actually looking at it. We're at the halfway stage of the season. That was Brighton's first penalty for the whole season.
Yeah,
Liverpool have had about 48. Yeah,
Liverpool get one every game, at least 1.5 every game.
Yeah. I can't actually remember that.
But yeah, you remember the joke, lads, that when the Everton-Liverpool game was cancelled with the storm, and it was only about 5 minutes after the decision, and this thing came up. Liverpool have been told that they can get their standard penalty carried forward to the next game.
I tell you one thing, the second half performance of United, I didn't see that coming yesterday, and that draw.
Well, look, this is the thing.
Slip up from Liverpool in terms of ourselves, yeah.
Just to amuse yourself and Pete, Jonathan, as you know, I removed myself from the Dublin Arsenal podcast thread because I've decided that to participate in that thread, you need properly prescribed mood-enhancing medication, and it's just not for me. So I removed myself from it. But one of the things I'm going to say, right, what gives Arsenal fans the right to think that they can be judge, jury, and executioner over everything? And I'm going to say this, and it pains me to say this, because I despise both clubs, right? Liverpool fans and Spurs fans would put us to shame, because what they do is get behind their team. If you look at what Spurs fans have had to put up with, you can say, well, Liverpool fans, they get behind the team because they're up on top. Liverpool didn't win a title for 30 years, and their fans were always behind them. Tottenham are going through an abject period at this point in time. And their fans aren't turning on them, right? And what our fans do is judge, jury, and executioner. I said it to a Tottenham fan today who really knows his stuff. you know, there's some of our boys calling for Arteta out. I had to wait for the laughter to stop. He said, "Hey, are you serious?" Right? And
it's all because Arteta has won FA Cup.
I would just stop now.
But that's what the argument.
Anybody would have heard. Pete, you're a football man. I'm sure you watch more than Brighton and Hove Albion, right?
Yeah.
Anybody with a pair of eyes can see that there's been a convolution of events this season that just haven't gone well for the Arsenal, between the decisions that I've laid out and injury. We don't get an injury in a position. We get 3 injuries in the same position just to make sure, you know.
Yeah. We haven't had a settled 11, you could honestly say, all season, but to be challengers for the last 2 seasons, and by the hopefully come the end of the season, this season as well, in what he inherited in 2019, it's been nothing short of miraculous, you know.
The last thing I'll say, Jonathan, by way of amusement, it's amazing what football does to you. And Pete, this will resonate with you, because you know the way I sat down to watch the Liverpool Man United game yesterday, and I was fully expecting Liverpool to steamroll them, you know.
Oh yeah.
And and when United went 1-up, all of a sudden there's hope, you know. And then Liverpool equalised, and then they got the penalty and had to watch Mo Salah doing this and sitting down and taking all the adulation. And I actually got to the stage where I made peace with myself. I made peace with myself that we've no chance of winning the title, and I just accepted it. It just felt like, and then what do United do? They go and equalise, and they create that hope again. And you know what they say? It's not the disappointment that kills you; it's the hope. You know.
I lost all patience. Now you do us a favour when Harry Maguire blazed over. I says, "Yeah, that's typical United."
I think he'd have been ruled offside. That one, you know.
I think you say Thomas Tuchel cross his name off to start in 11 for the next England game. Were you happy enough, Pete, with Brighton's performance? Do you think with that draw against ourselves on Saturday, do you think you can move forward for the second half of the season now in confidence that you can go up the table?
Yeah, because I think, you know, we weren't playing as underdogs for the whole game. You said we bossed the midfield. We gave as good as we got, and could have won it. Now, forget about the controversy and all that.
Yeah.
If Brighton had got a second goal, there's no reason anyone would have gone, well, they didn't deserve to get a second goal. But we gave as good as we got. Same as we could have conceded just as easily have scored. So I think Brighton can use this as now to say, right, we know we can do better than what we did over Christmas. We know we can boss the game, and we know we can play for 90 minutes consistently and do well. And they just need to use that going forward. And hopefully a lot of the injuries will start coming back in a couple of weeks, and just use that, just keep pushing forward.
If you could just convert some of those draws into 3-pointers, you would be well in contention for 6, 7, 8.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's started losing games, which is quite encouraging for you. He's are kind of like what Everton were a few weeks. You know, you're drawing a lot of games. If you can just convert, obviously injuries are hampering. You know, in certain positions, like yourself. You know, when you lose one class player, it's hard to replace that, isn't it? You know, it's
tough. And the thing is I hate when you've got big injury lists, but then I'm also like, so does everybody else. 90% of the clubs in the Premier League don't have a squad the size of Chelsea's. Can't just replace like for like players. I know Arsenal are in the jam at the moment because Odegaard has been out injured and Kaya Saka is out sick. You know, the replacement is good, but he's young. He's a lot to learn. Partey in the wrong position, and that allowed Baleba to basically say, right, the midfield's mine.
Yeah.
And he made it his own.
Dangerous.
And he did.
And Matt O'Reilly had a great game as well, I have to say, in there as well. If you're a physical squad as well, you've got players really physical in certain positions,
You can look at it this way. I mean, Brighton, they're one of these clubs who they probably feel a small bit under pressure to beat clubs lower down the league because they're expected to beat them. And clubs, it's amazing how the food chain works. Like, clubs will come out and play Brighton with a low block. If you get a kind of a Wolves going to, they'll come out because they know that Brighton are good. But when Brighton take on the bigger clubs, they very seldom let themselves down. Like they should have got 3 points at Anfield. They could have been 3-0 up. And they beat Manchester United at the start of the season before United imploded. And they beat Manchester City. And they've drawn with us twice. I mean,
we come back 2 down from against Tottenham.
And 1-3-2. Well, yeah, I was talking about big clubs, Pete.
Yeah. compared to Brighton,
yeah.
I mean, like, I think there's definitely a bottle job against the lower side clubs. I'm not going to say small clubs because
Palace.
It's not fair, but like Palace completely just stuffed us. There's no other way to say it. We didn't play good. Palace just beat us at home, and we just have to take that on the chin. And the way Palace's season had been going, rubbish away. Brentford was rubbish away. Just couldn't do it. And we just need to use these games against like Arsenal and get a result. And like we did at the beginning of the season where we got the 1-1 draw and was like, actually, hold on, look, we've just beaten United. We've just drawn with Arsenal. Went on a great run there. We were sitting second for a few weeks, So, and that's when I said, when you asked me at the beginning of the season, what would I like? And I said, we'll win the league. And I was sitting there going, not so much now, but back then I was a bit like, keep this up.
It's the optimism that kills you, Pete. You need to keep composed. No, but hopefully you can use the draw from Saturday as a catalyst to move up the table and have a good, strong end of the season, and a good maybe cup run in the FA Cup as well would be nice for you. Who was your man of the match, Pete, from Saturday for yourself?
It was a tough one, really tough one. But I think for me, João Pedro, he just ran. Forget about the winning the penalty. I think he just ran for every ball. He chased down. He was giving Raya a hard time. He wasn't allowing him to kick out from the back. And I think this is where the key was, where you say you didn't have a midfield. When they forced Raya to kick into the middle of the park, who was he kicking to? And I think that's why Brighton could overturn it, because we just and João Pedro's not just against Arsenal. I think he's doing this against every team. Just pressing up high, chasing the ball down, breaking up the opportunity to pass out from the back. He might not be scoring tons of goals, but his
work rate,
work rate is unreal.
Yeah, it's good show, actually. Yeah, he'd always be remembered at our home and away this season. That's for sure.
I think he's becoming the new Neil Mopey.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're going to get good views in this show, tell you, Pete. We're upsetting Arsenal fans. Eamonn, your man of the match for the Arsenal.
I thought the best player on the pitch was actually Belebe. But I mean, for the Arsenal, there were so many insipid. Nobody stood out, Jonathan.
No, if I was giving it to anyone, I'm just on it. Probably myself, I'd give it to Eaton and Weirdy just for the way he took the goal.
I thought it was disappointing. So I would actually give it to Martinelli.
The team was really poor. After saying that they were really poor,
I'd give it to Martinelli on the basis that he was brought on at half time when the team was going backwards, and he tried every sinew to make something happen, even if it didn't happen for him. So sometimes you've got to say in football, you get days where, and look, there's an illness bug going through the camp. We played 3 days earlier. I'm not, and they're not excuses. That's just facts,
Yeah.
But,
you just have.
Excuse me. But when it's not going terribly well for you, well, then the one thing you have to turn to is grit, effort, and determination. And I thought Martinelli gave us that in spades for the the 50 or so minutes he was on, you know?
Yeah, it was. We'll take a point at the Amex and
Well, that's
congrats.
the other thing, Jonathan, I meant to say. You take a point at the Amex. You have to put this into context, right?
Yeah, look, when you're down, your best player with Bukayo
I
Saka.
outlined 4 decisions that cost us either between 7 and 11 points, right?
Yeah,
But if we'd had 6 or 7 of those points in the bag, we'd be walking away from that 1-1 draw saying, do you know what? We didn't play terribly well. That's not a bad point. But it's a disaster because, in some people's mind, because of where we find ourselves, you know, and you've got to put it. We've won 6 and drawn 3 out of the last 9 league games.
For refereeing decisions, you know,
But
I'm
we've
not
won-
saying
but
this
we've
as an
won-
Arsenal fan. It will cost us the league, sadly,
but
and
we've
that's what
won-
it boils down to. And if
but
we continue,
No, Jonathan, we've won
continue,
6.
Eamonn.
We've won 6 and drawn 3 out of the last 9 league games.
Yeah.
It's hardly a bad run of form.
When you say that on the Arsenal thread,
I shall never reappear on that thread again.
And that's gospel, and that's after 3 or 4 Barry Moretti. No, look, 1-1, and I just have to say, congrats to yourselves, Pete. You stood up against the Arsenal Saturday, and a well-deserved point, I think, to take out. You know, a really good performance from us. A really good show, lads. Really good review show. Plenty discussed. Just like to thank Pete Baker from the Irish Eagles Brighton fan club. Thanks for coming on, Pete.
Pleasure. Can you headbutt somebody on the screen? I'll lame on him there.
Now you see, that would be a red card.
I'd like to thank Eamonn Anthony Taylor Donnelly for his input tonight. Hopefully he gives us a decision soon.
Anthony Taylor, there's a place in Finglas called Scribbles-town. And I tell you, there's been a few bodies found there with just 2 shoes up in the air, right?
Just like to thank again, lads. Thanks for coming on again.
Yes,
Pete and Eamonn Donnelly. Catch our show on the Dublin Arsenal YouTube channel and also on Spotify. Like, comment and subscribe. And our next review show will be all going well on Wednesday evening to review our Carabao Cup game from tomorrow night's game against Newcastle United, first leg in the semi-final. But until then, thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you again.
Thank you. See you. Bye.
All right.